ट्रस्ट ही नहीं था कि इंडियन कंपनी जो है मेक एन adulteration free product. It took 10 years for
Right.
quick commerce to actually become a reality in India. We want like fresh fruits and vegetables in our house every single day. वो लोग deep freeze में डाल के एक महीने तक खाते हैं same खाना. So there is a market beyond the top 20 million, 30 million users. So that market will also exist. पूरा asset class ही create हो रहा है इंडिया में. So there is an Ather and an Ola that are doing full stack vehicles. Zomato and Paytm went public. Nobody had seen an entire journey from zero to IPO. Startups तो आएंगी, पर जितने भी आप बोलो इंडिया में फिर भी कम है.
हाँ.
For every Mama Earth here, there are 5 in the US. There is a love for being a journalist that I really missed. You love as a founder that let me just prove things wrong and let me do it in a more efficient manner. Because the
Right.
consumer also cares about the environment. If the Gen Zs, everybody cares about the environment. For local quick delivery will not work.
Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of Growthcast Podcast. Today I have with me Aditi Shrivastava, who is founder of the Arc and Cap Table, and we'll learn from her journey into the world of startups and entrepreneurship. And also she comes with lot of knowledge about different sectors in startups. So आज वो भी discussion रहेगा to understand कि कौन से sectors हैं जहाँ पे आपको एक eye out रखनी चाहिए if you're looking out for job opportunities or venture or you want to start something of your own. So Aditi, thank you so much for taking out time on a Sunday noon and welcome to Growthcast Podcast.
Thank you so much, Shashank. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So I first want to understand how your journey into the world of entrepreneurship started. What was the idea behind the Arc and Cap Table, और फिर कैसे उस पे double down किया and how you started with it?
So, my journey into journalism was accidental. I wanted to do marketing, and fortunately or unfortunately, I got placed on campus, and फिर वो आपको दूसरे job में बैठने नहीं देते हैं. So I got into Reuters. So campus placement हो गई, and then I said, let's go to Bangalore and explore journalism as a stream. And I fell in love with journalism then and there. From Reuters, I moved to ET, Economic Times. There we started the startup vertical. So startups at that time were just sort of developing. And we started that vertical there. So it was a great 0 to 1 journey in a very large newsroom. But that was my introduction to startups. Then I took a little bit of a detour, which was I worked at a fund called Stellaris Venture Partners. And I was heading marketing there, but I was also doing a little bit of investing. So I did a little bit of everything because it was a very early fund. So we did a little bit of everything there. But that's where like I realized that there is a love for being a journalist that I really missed. And everybody thought I was crazy. I have left a job in a VC, which no journalist had ever gotten till then.
Right.
To come back to covering startups and tech. So I went back to ET for that, and that is when my now co-founder Madhav was making the move to start Cap Table for Your Story.
Okay.
And he said कि यार long form content पे कुछ बनाते हैं. This is a great let's do it in an objective data backed manner, which at that point was a gap. And we thought that it was a great platform. Your Story was already known for the 0 to 1 journey of many startups. So we thought that, the scaled up startups, let's try to cover that in long form. So did that at Your Story for about 2 years. And that something very interesting was happening at this time. So till now, we used to keep saying that we've seen multiple startup cycles. But actually till 2021, till Zomato and Paytm went public, nobody had seen an entire journey from zero to IPO.
Right.
And suddenly, like that entire circle was complete, and we realized that this is the time when technology companies in India are going to flourish. So we should do something like today to make something which is like a 10x valuable company 5 years down the line. And while Captable was entrepreneurial in its own way, it was still a part of a large company. So a lot of luxuries you get when you're a part of a large company. So we said that, we believe in the mission. We love to write. We love to report. So the arc was really started to build on that mission. But with one nuance here, that we wanted to not do a lot of long form content. We wanted to shorten the content, a lot more data driven. So you'll see a lot more data in our articles. And the third thing was we said that, if we want the ecosystem to grow, we need to make this accessible, which meant no paywalls. which was
Right.
a very bold call at that time because everybody thought, one, we are crazy to start a media company, and two, we are crazy to do it without a paywall. And we chose to do that because we thought that people should have access to the maximum data and information about these companies unhinged.
Right.
And the best way to do that is to keep distribution free. So that is the genesis of the ARC, and that is what the ARC stands for. So we cover large technology companies, and uh, we write in a very data backed manner. So you may not agree with our views, but everything that we write, we would write from a data point of view. And that's where we are today.
Great, great. So you, Aditi, you have seen both end of a spectrum. I am sure that you might have seen how traditional reporting works and how the things are different when it comes to reporting things related to startups. So what's the major difference there? Like, is this more data backed and that is more subjective in nature? What's the key difference between both type of journalism?
Uh, So it's my personal view that this is one sector that when you're covering, you
Right,
have to be okay being wrong all the time. You have to
right,
celebrate being wrong.
right.
So let's think about it. In 2012, when I was covering the new economy, everybody was doing hyperlocal commerce. सबसे
Right.
चल रहा है.
Huh.
Um, there was Pepper Tab, there was Grofers, there was and there are companies that I'm forgetting now. Like there must be like 100 companies that came out at that
Hmm.
time. फिर ये सेम चीज 2015 में भी आई 2020 में भी आई राइट सो एवरी टाइम व्हाट वाज द थिंग दैट hyper local quick delivery will not work.
Right.
Economics doesn't make sense, and then you'll see ungiven stories of all of this.
Hmm.
um, and then in 2021 everything changed, and today it's like a new benchmark, right? And a lot of things have changed, but it took 10 years for
Right.
quick commerce to actually become a reality in India.
Right.
Uh, and if you go with the traditional way of thinking कि यार ये तो नहीं बनेगा या
Hmm.
ये तो रिलायंस ही बनाएगा,
Hmm.
today we are seeing that's not true. Like there are core capabilities that you build in technology which are defensible. So
Right.
it's not true that capital can trump everything. There is value to the distribution that you're building. There's value to the technology capabilities, the supply chain that you're building. In 2015, imagine that Flipkart had to build an e-cart,
Right.
logistics company to do shipments.
Right.
Today, Meesho doesn't have to build a logistics company. वो solve हो चुका है problem.
हाँ, ऑलरेडी प्लेयर्स हैं जो हेल्प करते हैं.
So that sense of growth, that sense of trajectory, is something that you see on a daily basis when you're covering tech companies.
Right.
I have not covered traditional companies as much, but that momentum is not there. So it's like you're set in your ways. You know what's going to work.
Hmm.
Traditional companies help you benchmark a lot better. So I will always listen to an HUL call to understand what's happening in FMCG. But
Right.
I will always listen to a Mama Earth call to be inspired to see and what else can happen in the future.
Eh, right. Right. Right.
So I think that's the difference between the two, and it depends on what spectrum do you want to be. Do you want to be on this side or the other? And I definitely enjoy being on the other side, because I started my journey because in ET when I was in Reuters, but I was on a trip to New York,
Right.
and I saw Uber disrupting like yellow taxis, like right there, like where you don't even need. This is the problem that everybody said did not need to be solved. आप
Right.
बाहर जाओ and hail a cab, right? So
Hmm.
and I saw these guys doing a 10x better job. And I saw so many reports here, this is not going to work, so many unions, and it disrupted everything.
Hmm.
Uh, and it became the largest ride hailing company in the world.
Right.
So I think those kind of things, that which also you love as a founder, that, let me just prove things wrong and let me do it in a more efficient manner. Uh, I think that's the exciting part about covering tech companies, and that's what I enjoy about it. Traditional companies from that sense, like was a little bit boring for me. Like there's no other way to put it.
I think there is a broader plan जिस पे सब stick करते हैं उतना frugality नहीं होती that you get to see in startups या execution fail fast learn faster attitude. I
Correct.
think that is there in the startup which is the most exciting part. I like to shift gears and maybe move sector by sector to give audience also an understanding that what's happening in different sector, we can start with edtech. So edtech में जैसे 2020 2021 तक we were seeing कि K-12 वाला segment was picking up really well. मतलब there were startups that were getting massive amount of funding, but now that sector has fallen silent. मतलब one or two startups are there, but you
Hmm.
do you also see कि now this sector will be at focus? Yeah, there will be other sectors that will be coming up in edtech where we'll see more startups coming up.
Got it. So, yeah, EdTech has gone through like two or three fundamental, like two or three things have impacted EdTech as an overall sector.
Right,
One, the cycle of the boom 2021, like the crazy amount of money that came in, made people take irrational decisions, whether it came to acquisitions or the way they approach growth. So that was
right,
one. Second is that it's under like the consumer acquisition cost in edtech was fundamentally not solved for at scale. Uh,
right,
so that was not a problem when you have a lot of capital. You are spending money and things are growing. But the minute you stop spending, you have to really figure out your product market fit. And unfortunately, for a lot of people, that realization came at a much larger scale. If the
hmm,
capital was less, for example, that realization would have come at a 20-30 million scale.
right,
That happened at a $300 million scale. So amplify ho gaya,
hmm,
the entire space, right? Uh, Third is I think I nobody had ever seen a pandemic before.
hmm,
Uh, so your guess at that time was as good as mine.
right,
What is going to work? Our school is going to fundamentally change or not? All of those things were completely undiscovered. So that added another level of uncertainty, and people took certain bets, assuming certain theses, which today look they look incorrect, they look careless. But
right,
at that point in time, they could have been a 100x right as well,
right,
right? Like we had the most valuable edtech company globally at some
right,
point in time. It was the most celebrated for this reason. Of course, it didn't play out in that same way, but we have to acknowledge that that was a period of extreme uncertainty.
right,
And the fourth thing, which is very important and often not talked about, is that content has been disrupted by AI, which changes a lot of things for a lot of people. And content may, if you think about it, that not a lot of investments have been made in large content companies. So uh, extrapolate that, I think investments have been made in edtech is the largest market that has come out of content. अब आपका कंटेंट ही डिस्टर्ब हो रहा है बिकॉज ऑफ एआई नाउ
right,
दैट completely changes your input to what it takes to build a big company. So I think edtech went through that phase, and the fourth thing is still going on. AI is still something that you have to figure out, work with. Which gets me to the second part of your question that if somebody has to build a great company today in this space, uh, they need to reimagine it with AI, and they need to reimagine their cost structure. They need to reimagine their distribution. And yeah, that's and so I am definitely still bullish about the sector, and I still think that there are a lot of good companies that have come out and built products in the space. Unfortunately, the top two have not delivered, and that gets the perception down. But edtech is a sector that I think overall will thrive. It's a slow growth sector.
right,
If it gets regulated, it's a problem. But it's a sector that is fundamentally wired for India to win. And so long term, I will still be bullish on it, which is very counter.
hmm,
Uh, but you have to choose the right problems to solve and the right capabilities to solve it.
राइट राइट आई थिंक पहले सबने ये कहा कि ऑनलाइन विल बी दी की पीस इन द पजल, उसके बाद नाउ एवरीबॉडी इज शिफ्टिंग टू ऑफलाइन प्लस ऑनलाइन, तो ऑफलाइन भी अब धीरे धीरे वापस आ रहा है. बट very rightly said about the AI part, because I see there are tools such as Hagen जो most of the content creators are these days also using, कि आपको कैमरे के सामने बैठना ही नहीं है, यू जस्ट फीड इन द स्क्रिप्ट, आपने थोड़ा सा ट्रेन कर दिया तो वो आपकी वीडियोस क्रिएट कर रहा है आपके बिहाफ पे। सो इफ
Correct.
दैट कैन हैपन एट ए स्केल की सब्जेक्ट्स आप एआई के वो जो ये जो बने हुए आपके एआई अवतार्स वही पढ़ा दे रहे हैं, देन योर मोस्ट ऑफ द कॉस्ट इज अंडर कंट्रोल, देन यू जस्ट नीड टू deliver and the things will be fine there. But you also feel कि there is one, मतलब I through my interaction with followers feel कि अब स्किलिंग भी एक चीज है जो एडटेक को सॉल्व करनी चाहिए थी। राइट नाउ वी ओनली फोकस्ड ऑन कॉम्पिटिटिव एग्जामिनेशंस, और फिर आपने थोड़ा बहुत फोकस किया दैट वाज अराउंड की हायर आपका हो गई हायर डिग्री प्रोग्राम्स, ये दो चीजों के ऊपर हुआ। बट इन जनरल थिंग्स सच एज से सॉफ्ट स्किल्स विच आर हाउ वेल यू कैन कम्युनिकेट, या
Hmm.
आप किस तरह से खुद को प्रेजेंट करते हैं सो दैट यू एट लीस्ट हैव सम ब्राउनी पॉइंट्स व्हेन यू आर गोइंग इनटू इंटरव्यू, वो थोड़ी सी मेरे को लगता है स्केल पे सॉल्व हो सकता था, बट दैट इज समथिंग दैट नोबडी हैज येट टच्ड और टॉक्ड अबाउट।
करेक्ट एंड आई थिंक वो भी है कि यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड कि इंडिया में लोग पैसे देते किसके लिए हैं।
हाँ, राइट।
हाँ। अब इफ इट इज अ लार्ज इनफ प्रॉब्लम दैट पीपल आर विलिंग टू पे मनी फॉर इट, तो इसको सॉल्व करो।
हुँ,
बट इफ यू आर कमिंग फ्रॉम द स्कूल ऑफ थॉट कि यार ये तो लाइक दिस इज अ सॉफ्ट स्किल एंड इसको मैं हाउ डू आई गेट टैंजिबल आउटकम आउट ऑफ इट। सो एडटेक में इशू यही है K-12 तक का कि आउटकम आप कैसे जज करते हो
राइट।
ऑफ योर टीचिंग ऑफ एवरीथिंग, राइट? अगर आपने कोई डिग्री ली है, यू नो उसका आउटकम मेरे को ये जॉब मिल जाएगा। लाइक अगर
हुँ,
आपने कोई सर्टिफिकेशन लिया है, सो दैट सेक्टर एक्चुअली ऑलवेज डिड वेल।
राइट।
सॉफ्ट स्किल्स में भी सेम इशू है कि आप आउटकम कैसे जनरेट, लाइक हाउ विल यू जज द आउटकम?
हाँ, राइट। वहाँ पे एटलीस्ट देयर इज़ एग्ज़ाम, अगर आप दे भी रहे हो तो आपको पता है कि
करेक्ट,
इतनी सीट्स हैं, तो सक्सेस
करेक्ट,
फेलियर की क्लैरिटी है आपको।
करेक्ट।
यहाँ पे तो हाँ, इट्स बिट डिफिकल्ट। तभी वो मैंने देखा कि जो चाइल्ड फोकस पर्सनैलिटी डेवलपमेंट भी स्टार्टअप्स थी, उन्होंने उतना अच्छा किया नहीं। इनिशियली बूम आया था कोविड टाइम में, पर उसके बाद वो सारी भी धीरे-धीरे डाई आउट ही हो गई।
Correct. So, I mean, like, it is always like this is a very important segment. Like, my 5-year-old kid goes to a value education class in a school,
राइट,
uh, and it is something that schools are teaching. So, important skill hai life mein. But how much do parents value it? How much do adults who are already working value it? Um, the monetization of it, right? So, ये भी हुआ था कि एडटेक में बहुत सारे like people were trying to solve these problems, but they were not large enough markets on it on their own. So maybe it should have been solved in a different manner. Maybe it still can be solved in a different manner. But you're right. Nothing has come out on in scale with scale on that.
राइट, राइट। आई थिंक टैम ही वो थोड़ा-सा छोटा हो जाता है। I'll now move to second segment which is a center of action everywhere, that is fintech. So fintech में we are seeing two kind of startups, एक आपकी lending कर रहे हैं, एक
Hmm.
नॉन lending कर रहे हैं। तो इसमें which particular category you feel कि right now has much more opportunity and headroom going forward? Because lending में भी regulations थोड़े tight हो रहे हैं, नॉन lending में मैं देखूँ तो stock and investment में भी there are some regulatory guideline that will definitely come into picture.
So I think दोनों बहुत अलग है.
हुँ,
Lending as a sector is I think is going to grow. I think what RBI did is actually great for the country.
राइट,
Um, and sometimes we need these jolts to get our business back in order. Like as founders, everybody likes to take high risk,
राइट,
uh, and high risk is not good for the country. And in the asset class that they were operating, was unsecured lending. May regulations लाना I think was directionally a good thing for the country. So
राइट,
in this, I'm very nationalist. That if something is great for the country, let's we should say we should honor that as a fact. But I do think yeah, this market is actually going to grow. India needs debt and needs high quality debt. So I think this is going to go. I'm probably more bullish on secured lending at this point in time. So and EV financing and like certain high growth sectors may lending.
राइट,
Uh, so that is a very interesting segment for me. Um, and when it comes to like stock markets and trading, again, I think what the RBI and SEBI have done, what SEBI has done here is again good for the common man. So
हुँ,
we should embrace these regulations and startups move from two phases: move fast, break things, to a little bit of therav, as you call it. So I
राइट,
think we're in that phase where the therav has been brought to us, but it was still very needed. So I agree that FNO actually needed regulations because it's not okay running ads and saying that you and I can be Junjunwala. We can't,
राइट 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 हाँ वो तो
right?
मिसलीडिंग है काफी
वो बहुत मिसलीडिंग है. So and हम लोग शायद ना माने, but maybe कोई और मान जाए that they can, and they end up losing a lot of money, right? So I think all those things are structurally like they've been solved, which obviously gives a blip. So it does hurt in the near term. But in the long term, when you set these expectations, when you set these boundaries, then people know what they're operating within. And that's great. So that means that, you've been heard and there's been action that has been taken. Now, RBI is not supposed to be disrupting technology, right? So
राइट
five things happen, they see it and then they move fast and then they tell you, "Yaar, ye nahi chalega." SEBI will do the same thing. Um, and I think the regulators have actually been on top of things. So it needed to be done, and a वो calibrated way में it will move forward. So that's actually good for the country. आप देखो all the uh, uh, every app actually every trading app today is profitable.
राइट
Uh, so these companies are making money. Zerodha is making money. Grow is making money. Dhan is early on in its days, it's making money. So these are very fundamentally strong businesses that have been built. Uh,
राइट राइट
and they will continue to be fundamentally strong even despite this. Maybe
राइट
the growth slows down for a little bit. That's the outcome, but it will come back up, and it will come back up in a more, calculated manner.
राइट राइट I also see a lot of these companies investing time and energy on investor education also, especially stock and trading, to
Correct.
make sure कि at least जो trade कर रहे हैं उन्हें harsh realities पता हो. But if I talk about lending, मेरे को एक particular बस थोड़ा सा डर इस चीज से लगता है कि अभी जो just job में आते हैं, this fascination about getting a new iPhone, getting something very fancy, so they I feel कि somewhere थोड़ा सा lending trap में फंस सकते हैं, debt के trap में. But if they have that clarity or these applications are able to give them that clarity कि consumerism एक limit तक ही ठीक है, so I think then they are at a safe spot. Otherwise वही थोड़ा सा cycle का लगता है उसमें. But I feel कि then it is up to a person to decide कि कितना आपको लेना है debt और कितना नहीं लेना है.
Correct. I mean, there are people in my team who are in their early 20s. This is their first job. Um, and I see them, buying coffee from a blue tokai, where I will
Hmm.
see me and my founder going to, the roadside chapri
Capri.
and eating, having coffee from there. So it's fascinating to see that the aspiration of these and the aspiration of India has
Right.
already reached a certain stage, right? So that is how the country is changing. And yes, it does need to be calibrated. I would also think that it needs to be calibrated, uh, which is why sometimes I feel that it's okay if there is some level of discipline that has come at least on the unsecured lending side. Uh,
Right. Right. Very true.
so yeah, you're right. It is worrying when you sort of think about it that most of the iPhones that are bought cannot be afforded by people.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So I was reading some data कि 70% are mostly on EMI. So
Correct.
30% people are taking on down payment, but 70% is on EMI. बाकी ये तो next level consumerism की तरफ जाते जा रहा है इंडिया मार्केट.
Correct. अभी आप देखोगे, you go on Amazon or you go on Flipkart, like, I keep on arguing with people about this, that when they say, everything will be disrupted by quick commerce. I agree that everything is going to be about speed. Like, there is a very big focus on speed. But I would argue that Amazon and Flipkart's biggest moat is actually their financial services division that they have built up with, banks, the
Right.
buy now, pay later, the cards, the schemes on the card. So at least when I buy an iPhone, if I'm looking at, I'm always looking at, which bank do I have and,
हाँ,
what offer is running with that bank, right? अब वो अगर एक दिन बाद आएगा कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है.
right.
If it helps me save like 10,000 on a phone. So I think that is the mode that they have built around it, and that is how people are trying to make these products more affordable. And last few years has been tough for the Indian economy in general. So
Right.
I think that is an underlying thing as well, that environment tough है, लेकिन consumer is aspirational. Uh,
हाँ, right.
so the only thing that bridges that gap is your secured lending at this point in
Right.
time.
Right. 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 Then only things will fall into place. But you
हाँ.
talked about aspiration and very rightly spoke about quick commerce. So इस sector में क्या हो रहा है? Because I was reading and I think you are at center of action कि चल क्या रहा है? Now the brands which offer clothes and accessories, they are also saying कि हम 2 hours में deliver करना शुरू कर देंगे. So is this a FOMO जो सबको हो रहा है, या you feel कि this will be the way forward कि people will become so panicky कि अगर नहीं आ रहा है one day में तो maybe they'll move to a different platform which is offering say a delivery in less than 2 hours or something like that.
Um, so I think that uh, Amazon Prime was the gold standard. That was 2-day delivery, next day
Right.
delivery to 2-day delivery. Now that gold standard is 10 minutes delivery.
Hmm.
So will somebody wait for like 2 or 3 days to get a product delivered? Yes, but it is not customer delight anymore. Customer
Hmm.
delight is 10 minutes. So
Right.
every brand now has to think, yeah, what capabilities do I have to build to get closer to the customer delight number? Because that number is not 48 hours. Now that number is 10 minutes.
Hmm.
So that could mean that some people take the choice of next day delivery. It could mean some people take the choice of 2-day delivery, 2-hour delivery. What choices brands have to take based on the products that they're selling and their unit economics. Uh, but that goalpost has shifted from 2 days to 10 minutes. So that is how I broadly think about it. But I also then see companies like Misho.
Hmm.
अब मीशो कह रहा है कि यार मैं स्पीड पे स्पीड इज नॉट माय गेम. मेरा गेम है कि आई एम गोइंग टू गिव यू सिलेक्शन एट अ प्लेस जहाँ मैं सोच भी नहीं सकते थे कि आपको सिलेक्शन मिल सकता है एंड एट अ प्राइस दैट
Right.
वाज अनहर्ड ऑफ. I think that is also like a very large part of India. It may not be the tier one city India because we live in metros, so we have access
Hmm.
to retail, we have access to all these things. So हमारे लिए it's not such a big luxury, but that's not true for like all of India, right? So
Right.
that will also coexist, and that will be an equally big market.
Hmm.
So there is a market beyond the top, you know, 20 million, 30 million users. So that market will also exist. वहाँ पे you're only solving for access.
Right. Right. Even my bubble was busted. I once thought कि अब डी मार्ट पे शायद उतनी भीड़ नहीं लगती होगी, इनफैक्ट गुड़गांव में ही. बट व्हेन आई वेंट देयर तो वहाँ पे अच्छी खासी लाइन थी टू जस्ट एंटर इनटू डी मार्ट. देन आई अंडरस्टूड कि अभी भी बहुत अच्छे लोग हैं, अ गुड चंक ऑफ देम इन दीज सिटीज एज वेल, who go for this price वाला thing because they know कि once यहाँ से बाई कर लिया once in a month तो हमारी इतनी सेविंग हो जाएगी. So both spectrum के ends do exist in the market right now.
करेक्ट. और अब डीमार्ट पे आप देखो, व्हेन आई ऑर्डर ऑन डीमार्ट इट लाइक नेक्स्ट डे डिलीवरी हो रही है. सो
Hmm.
डीमार्ट इज आल्सो, सो एवरीबॉडी इज अपस्किलिंग देमसेल्व्स. सो इफ डीमार्ट कम्स एंड सेज कि यार क्विक कॉमर्स से मेरा कोई लेना देना नहीं है, दैट्स अ प्रॉब्लम. बट दैट्स नॉट
Right.
व्हाट दे आर डूइंग. दे आर सेइंग कि earlier we used to say we'll deliver in 3 days. That 3 days has become next day,
Right.
and in
Right.
some cases it's become 6 hours. So if you want to deliver value, so you the ethos doesn't change. The ethos is still to deliver value.
Hmm.
But the CEO is always asking this question कि यार ये value थोड़ा जल्दी deliver करने के लिए what is it going to take? And what are the
Right.
efficiencies that need to be built around it? So I think that
Right.
is how it is evolving. So everything will become a little bit more about speed. And speed will be a vector on with every brand as we speak. But
Right.
that the number on that speed is going to differ based on what is the hook value proposition.
Right.
So
Got it.
that's where I think like how it will evolve. Now let's see. We'll know in a few years.
Yes, yes. And I think that is starkly different from how the things are there in developed economies. Like I have friends there in US. If I ask them, तो उनके यहाँ इस टाइप की चीजें अभी उतनी ज्यादा पिकी नहीं की है. फर्स्ट यहाँ पे अभी थोड़ा हम रिसोर्सफुल है इन टर्म्स ऑफ लेबर इफ यू टॉक अबाउट इंडिया मार्केट. एंड सेकंड वहाँ पे शायद कॉस्टिंग ही वर्कआउट नहीं करेगी इफ दीज मॉडल्स आर रेप्लिकेटेड देयर.
Correct, correct. And I was also talking to an investor who told me that when these rapid use cases came, rapid delivery use cases came, the use case was only, alcohol or cigarettes or like, one-off items. Whereas
Right.
in India, the fundamental use case is grocery.
Right.
Uh, and the way we think about grocery, we want like fresh fruits and vegetables in our house every single day. वो लोग deep freeze में डाल के एक महीने तक खाते हैं same खाना.
हाँ हाँ हाँ.
And it is
Right.
extremely normal for them. Like my friends who live there now behave like this, right? So they're cooking one day for a month,
Hmm.
uh, and that's a very standard way of living. Frozen food is not. It's not an Indian culture.
या
Uh,
तो मम्मी डांट देंगी आपकी अगर आपने ज्यादा खा लिया तो.
हाँ. So वो पूरा पैराडाइम मतलब द वे अ कंज्यूमर थिंक्स ओनली हैज़ शिफ्टेड क्वाइट अ बिट लाइक लॉजिस्टिक्स कॉस्ट आई एग्री इंडिया में इज़ लोअर
राइट।
बट people also don't pay for delivery. So I would say that वो normalize हो जाता है.
हम्म।
But the SKUs that people are buying, the items that people are buying have actually changed quite a bit. And here the hook item that people are buying is FMCG and fruits and vegetables, uh,
राइट, राइट, राइट,
which is an everyday thing for us. Versus over there, this basket is done like once in a month or once every 2 weeks, and it's
राइट।
done at a Walmart. So that's how people think differently.
राइट, राइट, एंड आई थिंक कि यहाँ पे फ्रीक्वेंसी ऑफ ऑर्डर भी बहुत ज्यादा होती है। मतलब इफ आई ऑल्सो लुक एट माई ऑर्डरिंग बिहेवियर, सो जनरली इट्स 2 to 3 times at least in a day, and that is mostly, as you rightly pointed out, either groceries or maybe some FMCG products that I generally tend to order. So that is where I think these startups will find more and more use cases, जो आप बता रहे हो कि धीरे धीरे कस्टमर डिलाइट वो 2 दिन से कम होते होते एक दिन अब हो सकता हो, फिर इट विल बिकम अ नॉर्म कि within 2 hours you need to deliver. I'll now like to talk about one sector that is also picking up really well, that is EVs. And there are some really good startups which are working in this domain. So, would you like to shed some light on what's happening in this sector and what kind of trends are you observing? किस तरह की startups किस category में निकल के आ रही हैं अभी? हम्म।
सो ईवी में आई थिंक पूरा एसेट क्लास ही क्रिएट हो रहा है इंडिया में.
हम्म।
सो देयर इज एन एथर एंड एन ओला दैट आर डूइंग फुल स्टैक व्हीकल्स.
हम्म।
So that is once. There are also people who are addressing certain parts of the value chain. So people are building batteries. People are building cells. Um, so these are all fundamental like capabilities that are now being built in India.
Right,
People are building fast charging like your exponent energy. So that is one. And AVs, mein the good thing is that a lot of documentation is globally available. So you have access to global standards very,
right,
very early on in your life cycle. So that is good for the country as well. And then there are lending product companies that are being built
hmm,
as well. So there are a lot of like subsections of EV which are all equally exciting because fundamentally India is transforming from ICE to EVs.
right,
Uh, so that means that the way you think about the asset has to completely change. Like there is no engine anymore. You can, battery is is a separate commodity and the chassis is separate. You can actually make the two separate and
right,
think about these two separately, which means a lot of things. Which means you have to educate the consumer differently.
hmm,
You have to think about mobility differently. You can think about lending differently. Um,
right,
and I think it's in a very early stage right now, but these are again core capabilities that are being built on a fundamentally very strong tailwind industry. Um, so it is going to thrive, and it's a sector of the future. And there are and all these startups that are doing this today are competing also with OEMs.
right,
So this is not a sector जो साइलो में बन रहा है कि this
hmm,
is a technology led this is an Ola only. Ola is the only one who's solving this problem. That's not true. So it's being solved at scale from a Bajaj, TVS. Everybody is solving these issues.
right,
Mahindra. So that's what's exciting about this. I think the first sector that will actually get disrupted before consumers is going to be commercial vehicles because there are regulations around it. There are companies have their own targets of being carbon neutral.
right,
Uh, so all those things are going to be tailwinds for the commercial sector to pick up first, and then it will get then slowly it will normalize into the passenger vehicle segment as well. अभी दोनों tandem में चल रहे हैं, but I think the commercial segment has like a lot more tailwind,
right.
in its favor.
And I think this is one sector where I also feel कि बहुत profitability का बहुत strong chances are very high, because the product that you are building, it's basically, say if you are building cars or if you are building two-wheelers, तो वहाँ पे path to profitability faster है compared to a segment such as say quick commerce हो गया या बाकी हो गया, जहाँ पे आपको initially बहुत ज़्यादा invest करना पड़ता है, and your CACs are also very high compared to this sector. So I think this is, but one challenge, do you also feel कि right now maybe the infrastructure is one thing that we need to focus on in next 3 to 4 years, क्योंकि वो अभी थोड़ा सा मिसिंग है, आउटसाइड मेट्रो अभी है नहीं उतना स्ट्रॉन्ग.
Yes, I was going to tell you that only, that infrastructure and again core capabilities, like
Hmm.
to build an Ola, you need to build the factory. Uh,
Right,
uh, that's the moat of the business.
right.
Same way, to get EV adoption on a commercial level, you need to build charging stations near a dark store or near a warehouse, or
Hmm.
so wo ban raha hai. That is because that's the first low hanging fruit that you solve for. The second is when you solve for the Bangalore Coorg highway, right? So
Right.
that is where that's why I'm saying that passenger vehicles is going to take a little bit of time, because
Hmm.
consumers go to get used to the new asset class. It requires it needs a little bit of push. अभी वो
Right.
pull product नहीं है. Uh,
Right.
and but in commercial it is a pull product.
Right.
Um, and efficiencies can come much faster. So I think right now we are at that stage. But over time, everybody is going to invest in these capabilities. Like the future is investing in these capabilities. Like today, I see Blue Smart does it very well in the ride
They
hailing.
have launched their own car also, I saw in recent auto
Yes,
expo that happened. So they came up with their own vehicle. So because I've been using them since 2020 and I've seen the growth, it has been phenomenal. मतलब they are giving stiff competition at least to likes of Uber, Ola here in Gurgaon. So
करेक्ट. सो वही है कि आई मीन अगर आपने कंज्यूमर को ये प्रॉमिस कर दिया कि योर एक्सपीरियंस इज गोइंग टू बी equal to an Ola and Uber, or if not better,
right,
then the consumer will choose you for a 10-15% premium, because the
right,
consumer also cares about the environment. If the Gen Zs, everybody cares about the environment. अगर
right.
आपने प्राइस पॉइंट फिक्स कर दिया, and if you are able to say that, sure, it's 10% more expensive, but the experience is 10% better and it's better for the environment, I think you have a decent enough value proposition to go with. Um, in passenger vehicles, I think that anxiety is still there with people, that, if I want to do this XYZ road trip, mera range kya hoga? I think those are still, there are companies that are solving this on a daily basis, but
Right.
that conviction will take a little bit more time to build. But these are the companies that are going to educate the
Hmm.
consumers. Yeah, this is मतलब ये इंडिया में बन रहा है. This is an option. And I would anyway, like any day, choose a clean vehicle over an ICE vehicle. If you
हाँ,
promise me that everything else is going to be the same. Uh,
right.
so I think that is where it is kind of at this stage. But we are also at a very early stage in EVs in India as well. So ये भी evolve होगा quite a bit, but it's a very high growth sector. So if you are, as a sector, I'm very bullish about it, because it's a tectonic shift in the mind.
Hmm.
In the mind. So बहुत चीजें disrupt होंगी, बहुत चीजें अलग होंगी.
हाँ, एंड आई थिंक अगर जॉब पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से भी कोई देखता है तो दिस इज वन सेक्टर दैट दे कैन डेफिनेटली एक्सप्लोर, क्योंकि अगर इतने बड़े स्केल पे इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर सेटअप होगा और फिर अगर चीजें एक्सपैंड होंगी तो देयर विल बी मल्टीपल रोल्स और ओपनिंग्स कमिंग अप इन दिस पर्टिकुलर सेक्टर एज वेल. दैट इज व्हाट आई.
Absolutely, absolutely. That totally makes sense.
I'll move to one final sector that I'd like to discuss is D2C. Like we heard कि अभी minimalist का acquisition हुआ from HUL. So do you feel कि this sector still has some meaty stuff left in it, because now there are numerous brands. If you see Shark Tank India, तो सब D2C ही आते हैं वहाँ पे, सब D2C ही कर रहे हैं. So will this sector see new startups coming up, or you see कि there will be now consolidation going forward? क्या रहेगा इस particular sector का future?
Um, so स्टार्टअप्स तो आएँगी,
Hmm.
बिकॉज़ जितने भी आप बोलो, इंडिया में फिर भी कम है।
हाँ,
लाइक
right.
फॉर एवरी वन मामा अर्थ हियर, देयर आर 5 इन द यूएस। तो
Hmm.
एक और तो बन जाए। सो देयर इज़ सो द स्कोप आई थिंक स्टिल डज़ एक्सिस्ट। I do think that a few things have changed, which is that now consumers are a lot more aware. So they're searching for some core capability. तो द
Right.
वन ऑफ द बिग रीज़न्स व्हाई मिनिमलिस्ट वर्क्ड वाज़ बिकॉज़ उनकी खुद की फैक्ट्री थी। आपका खुद
Hmm.
का आईपी है, यू ओन द एसेट, योर formulations are, in house. I think earlier क्या हो रहा था, that just going to a Haridwar and outsourcing your
हाँ,
सब
व्हाइट लेबल हो रहे थे सारे, हाँ.
व्हाइट लेबल करके आप अपना ब्रांडिंग का प्ले कर रहे थे। आई थिंक कंज्यूमर्स हैव बिकम मच स्मार्टर देन दैट।
हुँ,
So they expect a lot more out of you. So आप contract manufacturing करो, but there has to be some moat in the business, something very defensible in the business, and then sure, then people are willing to pay for it. Like I used to take my protein from, I used to get it, ask my brother to get it from Singapore all the time.
Hmm.
Because मेरे को कभी ट्रस्ट ही नहीं था कि इंडियन कंपनी जो है will make an adulteration free product.
Right.
Today, for me, the whole truth has actually changed that. Like it works beautifully for me. And I
Hmm.
tell my brother कि ये तो मुझे जो तू भेजता था उससे better लगता है. So if you fundamentally created a better product, I think you will, there is a lot of scope. अगर आप, if it is just about, optimizing an SEO and, trying to like build fast, that is going to eventually fade out.
Right.
That will not work. But defensible product may it works. Like everybody thought कि यार ultra human, so like oh, who will use it in India? The TAM is so small. And sure, they were all right about that. The TAM in India must be small. But they
Hmm.
built a global company out of it. Right. So again, if the
Right.
product is defensible and is globally defensible, then you fight in the global markets. Maybe India is not your
Hmm.
top market to fight for, but you feel so proud when you see it in the Singapore airport that this is
Right.
an Indian company which is at global standards. So I think
Right.
वहाँ पे थोड़ा फोकस बीच में चला गया था that
Hmm.
anybody was solving for it कि चार गूगल ट्रेंड्स देखे और मतलब एक ब्रांड बना दिया.
हाँ.
That doesn't work. That that will only take you this far.
Hmm.
But if you are really going deep into a consumer problem and you're trying to solve for it, I think there are still a lot of areas where large companies, large brands can be built. So,
Right.
so yeah, I'm still very, very bullish about D2C. It's India
हाँ,
needs
I
more D2C brands.
हाँ, आई थिंक फिर वो मार्केटिंग लेड इनोवेशन नहीं हो सकता, जैसे आपने राइटली कहा, इट नीड्स टू बी अ प्रोडक्ट लेड इनोवेशन की
Correct.
व्हाट योर प्रोडक्ट इज डूइंग डिफरेंटली
Correct.
इंस्टेड ऑफ जस्ट मे बी बम्बार्डिंग पीपल विद एड्स एंड देन ट्राइंग टू सेल थ्रू इट, तो वो विल बी डिफिकल्ट टू सस्टेन. I'll move to some personal side of things. So you have been a mother, you might have taken a maternity break. There are a lot of women who follow the page. So if you are coming back after a maternity break, what are some of the things that you will suggest them to do and how they can then shape up their career forward?
Okay, so I actually did not take a maternity break.
Oh.
I had very, very excellent support at home. I took a break for 3 months, two and a half, three
Hmm.
months, but I was back in 3 months. Few things that I would suggest women to do is even during your maternity leave. This is something I struggled with afterwards, which is that I lost semblance of what is life outside my, bedroom. Like, it was a very repetitive task kind of, 3 months that I had. Um, and one thing that actually helped me a lot was that I was reading a lot. Uh, you know, just, just getting away from like your daily routine, trying to do something for yourself so that uh, there is an understanding of reality वो distort हो जाता है.
Right.
And nobody talks about it because they it's hidden behind the word prioritization that baby is the priority.
Hmm.
uh, but I was lucky enough that in my family everybody always said to me that you are an equal priority. So if you need that sleep at night, we'll be up and taking care of the baby. So I think that that is very important that you don't kind of lose yourself in those 3 to 4 or 5 or 6 months because it's a very overwhelming process. I realize a lot of women don't talk about it,
Right.
which they should, because these are all problems that everybody has gone through and these are problems that can be solved. But a lot, is left unsaid.
Hmm.
With the assumption that you'll be judged. So I think now we should start talking about it a lot more, and get women back to the workforce. Um, the second is that sometimes it's okay to take it a little slow when you're coming in.
Hmm.
Um, like for me, like I jumped right in, and there were days when I was failing, and I realized that 1 year back I was not failing at this, and now it's taking me 2x the time to resolve something. So again, it's a gradual curve. Everybody deals with it differently, but the point is to acknowledge it and set your own boundaries. So, for example, when I went back to work, if I had to, do my story writing for 2 hours, I would shut the room and I would do just that. I will, the baby is not like in my space in that point in time. Then somebody's taking care of the baby and I'm doing this.
Right.
It was easier said than done because again, I had a lot of support. But I think a lot of women now do have that support from their husbands. My mother keeps telling me that the support I have from my husband is 10x more than what she had from dad.
Right.
So that support does exist. Don't hesitate to ask for help. And help does not mean asking your employer for help. It means asking your family, asking your friends, asking your support system for help. And when you do, people will show up. Uh,
Right.
a lot of times I've seen that women don't ask for that help because they feel that they'll get judged.
Right.
But you ask for help and you will get it because people want to help you. And yeah, so I think those are the two things that worked very well for me. I had a very good employer. I was with Economic Times at that time. My HR used to call me and say कि आप क्यों काम कर रहे हो? आपको किसी ने बोला क्या? And I'm like नहीं, I'm doing it from my own will. Like ET was an excellent employer. So all those things like helped me. Uh, but yes, when there are good days and there are bad days, and everybody goes through it. Uh,
Right.
so it's absolutely fine. It's a choice. Having a child is a choice, and if you've taken that path, you will you should find a way to deal with everything that comes with it. You are dealing with the joy, you deal with the lows as well.
Right. I think this brings me to my last question. So, a lot of viewers who watch this are also working professionals. What are some of the career tips that you'd like to give them? बहुत से हैं जो अभी early stage हैं, बहुत से हैं जो mid stage हैं. What are 2 or 3 things that they should continue doing on a regular basis if they want to have a long, sustainable, great career?
um so one thing is you should love what you do, and you
Right.
should be all in, um and you should be prepared for the bad days. So I judge my team from the days where बिल्कुल उठ के काम करने का मन नहीं कर रहा है, but you still show up. You still do the work and you still do it like with 100%. It's
Right.
very, very tough to do.
Hmm.
And you can only do it if you love your job. But a lot of what I see is that, people spike on great days and then they have a crash.
Right.
Um, I think the goal should be to try to avoid the crashes. The more
Hmm.
you avoid the crashes, the more predictable you are the more reliable you are as an employee or an employer.
Right.
Uh, and that has exponential value. Like if you know that somebody is always going to show up, that is great value to have. It's much better than somebody who's like going on spikes. Uh,
Right.
so I think that is extremely important. So work ethic from that regard, I think is underrated. People index a lot on skills. I index a lot on work ethic. I'm anyways into journalism, so work ethic is
It's
fundamentally very, very
very.
important in the business. Uh, but that is something that an employer will retain you for. Uh,
Hmm.
that you came on a rainy day and you showed up, and not only did you show up, you did 100%. Uh,
Right.
so that is my one advice. And yes, you should love what you do, because this is not possible. What I'm telling you is not possible if you don't love what you do. Uh,
Right.
so I can show up for journalism every single day, like at any point in time, and a bad day or a good day. That's why I'm doing this.
Right.
This was any other job, and I'd be like, yeah, ये boring है.
Hmm.
Then that would be a problem.
Right. I think one thing that I also keep on talking and telling these folks is कि हर चीज वो प्रमोशन माइंडसेट से मत देखो कि ये प्रमोशन इससे किस चीज से प्रमोशन होगा मे बी हैव दैट लर्निंग एंगल एज वेल कि कितना लर्न कर रहे हो बिकॉज प्रमोशन कैन हैपन इन दिस वन पर्टिकुलर कंपनी बट अगर लर्निंग बेटर है देन यू आर एम्प्लॉयबल आउटसाइड दैट कंपनी एज वेल एंड दैट हैज इक्वल बेनिफिट्स.
Correct. So core capability बनाना तो बहुत important है. The other thing I see a lot, and I see this a lot with college students, because we used to hire a lot of college students from your story to even Captable and even in the art, is that these kids are doing a lot of things at the same time.
हाँ,
Um,
मल्टीटास्किंग.
They are trying to, they want to run 5 organizations in their school, in their college. They are running a fest. They are doing an internship. Um, at least in our time, it was a lot more measured. Like we would take one thing and हम उसी में खुश हो जाते थे कि we are doing this
हाँ,
one extra thing outside of college. But because of the pandemic, because a lot of these students were not on campus for a long time, they had the a chance to do like 5, 6 different things.
hmm,
Uh, and that's great from a discovery standpoint. But at some point, you have to narrow it down and say, "Yeah, I want to double down on this skill set and I want to go deep into it." Because
right,
hota hai, you're a master of none,
hmm,
and uh, generalists have a place, but specialists have an even deeper place. Uh,
right,
and I think that capability needs to sort of be built by taking the right choices. So that's the other thing that you try out 100 things, but then be very sharp at narrowing down what you're good at, what you enjoy doing, and then double down on it. Like I tried VC,
hmm,
and honestly, neither was I good at it, nor did I enjoy it. So it doesn't matter how much it pays you.
हाँ,
You kind of make the choice कि यार ये तो मेरी strength ही नहीं है. This is not
hmm,
the core capability that is going to make me win. Journalism is the core capability that I enjoy and that will make me win. So you
right,
sort
right.
of double down on that.
Hmm,
Same way, I think those choices need to be made a little sooner than what I'm seeing people do right now. They're
hmm,
taking it very, very, broad based.
right. I think that is a great nugget of wisdom that everybody watching this episode should follow. Thank you so much, Aditi, for taking out time. It was great interacting with you.
Awesome. Awesome. I love doing this.
Thank you. Just